Hello there. How are you? Welcome to the KBCR TV Show with credit and financial tips with guess who? Me, Michelle Green. I am so elated that you are here today. Thank you for watching. First, let's make sure that you are subscribed to the Kingdom Builders Credit Repair YouTube channel. We want to make sure that you set your notifications so you never ever forget an episode of the KBCR TV show. Listen, we are powered by the CTR Media Network. So if you're looking for a place where you can be seen and heard, where your voice matters, listen, go on over to www.ctrmedianetwork.com so you can get your own podcast or TV show. That is how we are aired here today. So listen, let's get into today's topic of student loans being exposed. What are those secrets, those shocking secrets that we don't really know about student loan debt? Well, we are going to talk about it today. So go ahead and hit that subscribe and share this YouTube channel. Share us so that we can get the word out about how the student loans work. Okay? And let's get into it. So, first off, as we do always every single week, we want to make sure that everyone understands the purpose of credit. Like, what is credit? Credit is the ability for you, because you don't have the money to pay for the things that you want or that you need, that you have the ability to finance your items with a creditor or lender. So it could be a bank, it could be a credit union, it could be anybody that is a financial institution offering you the ability to be able to pay for something in advance right now, get a purchase of a house or a credit card, a loan, a personal loan, maybe a vehicle loan. Whatever it is, you would have the ability to finance it. And when you finance it with that original creditor, the company that is going to actually give you the credibility, then what happens is the credit shows up on Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion credit reports. They are credit reporting agencies, which mean that every creditor that you obtain credit with is going to eventually end up on Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and also Innovis, which is a fourth bureau, but it's not a major bureau. So most people know just the first three. But that's not our topic today. We are talking about the credit that you have obtained as it relates to student loans. So a type of debt that most people obtain is a student loan debt, because everybody wants to be educated. We want to gain more knowledge in the areas of our understanding, right? So whatever type of gift, skill, or talent that you have, and even if you don't know what you want to do, but you want to go to school to get an education in something, even if it's just the basic elementary type stuff like math, science, social studies, English, then we know that everyone has some type of desire to grow and to expand in their mental stability, in the things that they can do as a skill, a gift, or talent. So that's why we go to school. So let's just first establish why you want to go to school. Why would you want to expand your opportunities for education past graduating from high school? Well, those opportunities are not free for us, and that is the purpose of us having a student loan. If we cannot pay for the student loan ourselves out of pocket, once again, just the same way that credit works, we have the opportunity of getting a student loan. Now, there are two places that you can get a student loan from. First place that you can get a student loan from is the government. So the government offers student loans to people really with no credit check most of the time. So what we want to understand about this is, even though you're going to school and you're getting your education and you don't necessarily have all the money to pay for the student loan, the government will provide the educational route for you. But you must understand that if you are doing what we call a public loan, it's going to be through the government. The second type of loan that you can get as a student loan is going to be a private loan. So a private loan is a loan that is financed through a bank or credit union or some other financial institution outside of the government. Now, the difference between the two different types of loans that you can get, whether it's a private or a public loan, if it's a public, that's the government, okay? Government is connected to every single public student loan, okay? So that's the first option. And then the second one is the private student loans. So the private student loans are separate from the government per se, but what happens is you have the financial institution like a bank or credit union that's going to finance the loan for you. Now, usually in some way or another, we end up back related to the government with the student loan debt somehow or another, but you do need to know that there are two types of loans that you have the option of obtaining when you are deciding that you want to go back to school or go to school straight out of high school and graduate and go on and further your education. So that means that you can either go through the government and have a no credit check option for your education and go ahead and get those loans. But listen, stop using the loans that are public as a source of income. That's not the purpose of the loan. The loan is for you to get an education, not for you to take the loan and spend it in the event of an emergency or just to suffice as an income. That's the improper way to use it, and I'm going to explain why in just a minute. The other option is for you to do a credit check through a private institution such as Sally Mae, Discover, some of the other name brand student loans that you may have seen. You need to check into the loan to see if it is a private loan, because if it's a private loan and you run a credit check for your education to go to school, then it is going to be dependent upon your credit score. So we don't want to just jump into the game of, I'm just going to go back to school and I don't know if this is a private loan or a public loan. We need to figure out which type of loan it is so that we will understand the advantages and the disadvantages of each. Okay, so that's first off. Now, secondly, we need to understand about the type of subsidized versus unsubsidized student loan. Many of us go back to school or we have an education straight out of high school, going straight into college, and we have to ask for, some type of loan assistance. Many times you do have the option of being able to get a grant. If the grant is available or a scholarship is available, I'm telling you, hands down, go ahead and take that option. Put yourself in position now, or your children or grandchildren in a position first to obtain a grant or a scholarship, because that's free money for your education. So that would be the first initial opportunity for you to be able to go back to school. So get a grant or a scholarship. But when it comes to after we have established whether it's a public or private student loan, then we have to decide on if it is a subsidized or unsubsidized student loan. So this subsidized student loan is a loan where if you are a undergraduate, if you are a person who is getting ready to go to college straight out of high school, and whether or not you're doing an associate's or a bachelor's or a master's, and let me just explain the three different opportunities for education. An associate's is usually a 2-year opportunity for you to get something like a skill, some type of certification, usually for a 2-year period of time for an associate's certification. The bachelor's certification or degree is for someone that is usually going to school for a 3 or 4 year time period. So that means that you'll be going to school not just for 2 years, but for 3 years or 4 years. Now, after you have obtained the 4-year degree, with the bachelor's education, then you get to move into your master's. And master's is usually about a 3 to 4 year opportunity for you to gain a higher education. And then, of course, the extended version of the master's is the doctorates. Then you would be able to go on to get your doctorate's degree, and that would mean that either another 3 or 4 year opportunity for you to enhance and get your doctorate, the DR, behind your name. All right, so those are the steps of you getting the education. But the thing that you need to know about a subsidized education is that the subsidized education is usually available only to the undergraduate. This is usually demonstrated by not allowing the person or people that are going to school as an undergraduate, that associate's or that bachelor certification, they will have the opportunity only for them to get the subsidized student loan. So the subsidized student loan is really not for necessarily the master's or the doctorate's student. Okay, do we have that under control? We have a clear understanding on that. All right, good. So then we look at the fact of what's the interest on the the subsidized student loan. Okay, so the subsidized student loan, we're looking at the government is going to be paying for this, right? But the interest, the reason why it's such a big deal is because I'm sorry, I keep saying standardized, but the subsidized student loan is actually the loan that does not accrue interest while you are going to school. So that's the reason why it's only available for the ones that are going back to school or going to school for the first time with an associate's or a bachelor's certification or degree. So we want to look at the fact that we're going to have the opportunity to not have to pay interest. Well, what is interest, Michelle? Well, if you had a $5,000 student loan for you to go to school for the first let's say 3 to 6 months of this year. So let's say you started in September and you're getting ready to go to school for the next 2 to 4 years. All right. So a semester, or rather a quarter is 3 months, a semester is 6 months. So if you decided to go to school and that first quarter or semester was going to cost you $5,000 in tuition to go to college, then what would happen is by the time you finish that year, what would happen on a subsidized student loan, you would not have to pay any interest on the $5,000. So even if you did subsidize all the way through to the end and you graduated, it means that you would not accrue any interest on the subsidized student loan. So the subsidized student loan is interest free as long as you're in school and even 6 months after you graduate from college or a university or whatever. Okay, so we want to make sure that we understand that the opportunity for us to look at if it is a subsidized student loan or unsubsidized student loan, it does matter. So we're talking about a $5,000 loan, you will still be paying $5,000 for that quarter or for that semester. If $5,000 was accruing per semester or per quarter every single year, so that would be $10,000 a year times 4 years would be $40,000 a year. So you would end up after even 6 months after you've graduated with still a $40,000 student loan balance instead of a $60,000 student loan balance, depending on the interest rate that you are receiving. So when we think about interest, we want to understand that interest is the money that we have to pay in addition to the original balance that we owe as we are going to school to get our education. And many people don't understand how important and crucial that is. If someone says that, hey, I will give you, let's say the government says they're going to give you all the money for you to go to college, for you to go to school, then that is a lump sum of money that you have to pay back. It's not free money. It's just that you don't have to pay the money right then while you're going to school. But on the flip side, the interest will begin to accrue on a unsubsidized student loan. So if we're looking at an unsubsidized student loan, who gets the unsubsidized? The undergraduates, which are the associate certifications or degrees, as well as the bachelor's. So if you're going to school for 2 years or you're going to school for 4 years, you get the opportunity to have a unsubsidized student loan. But also, in addition to the undergrads, you also get to have the opportunity to obtain the unsubsidized on the master's and the doctorate degree students. So we're talking everybody has the opportunity to get a unsubsidized student loan. But the problem is that the interest is going to start accruing. If they said that you're going to go to school and that first semester or that first quarter, first 3 months, first 6 months is going to be $5,000, then by the end of that quarter and the end of that semester, you're not going to owe $5,000. You might owe $7,500. You might owe $6,000. You might owe $10,000, depending on the interest rate, the amount of money that they are going to charge you, in addition to the original balance that it costs you to get your education in the first place. So we don't want to just take it lightly as to what type of standard subsidized or unsubsidized student type loan that we have. And we do need to understand the difference between the public and the private student loan. It matters because it matters over time. If you're going to come out of school as you graduate and have a $40,000 to $60,000 student loan balance or $100,000 student loan balance. That's why so many people are in the predicaments that they're in with their credit and their finances, because if we look at how it's impacting our actual credit score, student loans are not just listed on our credit report as one lump sum of a loan. Every quarter that you go to school, every semester that you go to school is going to show up with a different loan amount. So how much is it costing you per quarter to go to school? And understand that whatever that amount is going to hit your credit every quarter and every semester, even though it's a different amount. So you might have taken up certain subjects at the very beginning, but then you took up maybe some more classes as you progress over time. Well, those additional classes are going to cost you more money, which means that you're going to have additional credit reporting showing for credit student loans on your credit report. You're going to have additional balances for every quarter and every semester. And as you increase with your classes, your tuition is also going to increase and show a separate account on your credit report. So please, please, please pay attention to what you are doing when you are going back to school to get that education. Yes, we got to get an education. Yes, we got to continue to grow. Yes, we got to do all of these things to improve ourselves. But the problem is that we don't understand how the student loans work. So understand that you have to pay attention to standardized, unsubsidized, or subsidized student loan, not standardized. Okay, it's the standard of either the option of a subsidized student loan or a unsubsidized student loan. Okay, now moving right along. When we look at the interest rate of the student loan, we want to understand that federal loans, which are the loans that usually are attached to the government, that you don't have to get a credit check necessarily ran on every student loan through the government to get it. Those are the loans that usually run about a 5 to 8% interest rate. So you need to know the interest rate, because the interest rate is what's going to determine how much interest you got to pay back over time, right? So you don't want to be borrowing a $5,000 student loan and have to pay 12% or higher for the student loan payback, because that means that you're going to quickly accrue a lot of money to pay back in student loan debt. And the more money that you have on your credit report to pay back in student loan debt, the less likely the lenders and creditors are going to trust you in other areas of credit. Think about it. If you're trying to buy a house, but you got this $100,000 student loan debt over on the left hand side of your credit report, and you're like, oh my goodness, I had to get an education. I got my education and everything. But the problem is that even though you got the education, hey, they want to see that you can pay back the education. So if a mortgage lender is getting ready to offer you a $300,000 mortgage and you have $100,000 in student loan debt or more, then that's going to be a problem for the mortgage lender, because now they don't even trust the fact that you can even pay the mortgage back because you got $100,000 already, showing that you've never made not one payment on the student loan debt that's on your credit. So let's look at the payback options. When we think about the government and the fact that the government charges about 5 to 8% interest on the student loans, but the private loans are usually going to run an interest rate of about 12%. That's pretty high. So we're talking a $40,000 student loan automatically at 6% over 20 years is going to run you almost $70,000. Can you imagine if it's 12% interest and a $40,000 loan? That's going to be about $120,000 that you have to pay back over a period of 20 years. That's a lot of money. So we don't want to engage into that. So let's look at the payback options over the period of years. So the first thing I want to explain is that the standard repayment is usually going to run about 10 years, but the standard repayment on a fixed rate while you are actually going to school is usually going to be the best option. When I say payback option, I'm referring to the fact that while you are going to school, you should be trying to pay back whatever the tuition is for you to get that education. Because if you do it while you're in school, the beautiful thing about it is you would approximately extend your student loan to only about 10 years. So you graduate in 2 to 4 and you'll have that thing paid off within 10 years. If you are trying to pay off the debt while you are going to school. So most of us don't have the mentality to get the education and then turn around and pay the education while we're in school. In other words, we feel like the only thing that we can do while we're in school is to go to school. And that is a wrong mentality as it relates to our credit, as it relates to our finances, and especially being able to be free from having a whole lot of debt on our plate or on our credit reports. We don't want the opportunity of never having to be able to utilize our money the way that we want to utilize it. We want to have the freedom of choosing what it is that we want to do and what it is we don't want to do, and being able to meet somewhere in the middle. Okay, so we don't want to just expend every dime that we have. We want to be able to say what it is that we want to do or don't want to do. So the first thing that I want to say about paying back a student loan is, if you have the opportunity to go to work, to get an education at the same time, have an income set aside, even if it's just a small amount. Maybe it's $50 a month that you're putting towards the student loan tuition, especially if you can get a subsidized student loan. I keep mixing those words up. I apologize. But a subsidized student loan where you are not paying interest until 6 months after you graduate, then that's going to allow you to pay off some of that debt. And that way you will not be in debt but approximately 10 years on the payout or payoff to that student loan. So to pay back the student loan, the best option is a subsidized and a option of paying the loan back right now while you're in school. The second thing that we look at when we look at the student loan debt and we look at the payback option is the fact that once you graduate, you're looking at approximately 20 to 30 years of paying back your student loan. So payments will start as a small amount, usually anywhere from $0 to $5, maybe even $10 is the requirement for you to pay back the student loan after you have graduated. But the problem is that you're waiting a lot of time before you're touching the principal balance of your education. And if you're doing that, then it means that over a longer period of time, you're going to be indebted to the student loan. Okay, so we don't want to put on the student loan on our credits. We don't want to put that on our credit for a 20-year period of time if we can help it. So take the first option, pay on the loan while you're in school. But after you graduate, you do have the option of probably paying it off in approximately, I would say, 20 to 30 years. But that's only if you start right after you graduate or the 6 months after you have graduated and you start to make some small payments. What you want to do is look at all of the loans collectively together and see what are the breakdowns of the quarters and semesters that you went to school, or if they have it broken down on your credit per year and how much they charge you per year for tuition. Then once you come up with those balance amounts, try to go ahead and start with the smallest tuition amount that you have on your credit and then work your way up. You can also find out the details of your quarter and semester or years in the FAFSA option of contacting FAFSA. That's the Federal Student Aid option of going to FAFSA and finding out all of the loans that you have as a student loan, and they will break down every single individual quarter, semester, or year that you have went to school, and they will give you the printout of how much every loan actually is. So that way you can have a plan to actually break down those student loans individually for yourself, for your kids, for your grandchildren, whoever is paying for that student loan debt, whoever is paying for that education. You need to know how long it's going to take you to pay that money back. So we're talking 20 to 30 years is the average opportunity for you to pay back a student loan after graduation, after the 6 month window that they give you to start paying the loan back. The next thing is if you're doing an extended repayment. An extended repayment is talking about, we're not talking about 20 to 30 years, we're talking about 40 plus years or longer. So you're talking about probably a 40 average of 40-year span of time, and you don't want to be entangled into the trap of a 40-year extended time period to pay back a student loan. So I'm saying to you, just like we talked about the graduated repayment option, when you're paying back after graduation, go ahead and start putting some money on the student loan debt. Make sure that you're positioning your income so that you can be receiving income as soon as you graduate while you're going to school as well, and that way you never stop the cycle of being able to start paying on that student loan debt. And if you're already in the situation, listen, it's time to get serious and aggressive about getting on board with the paying back of your student loan debt. Or if you don't have the option of paying back the student loan, then there is an option of income driven repayment plans. When I say income driven repayment plan, it's literally based on your income. But what I want you to know about paying back a loan that's under an income driven repayment plan is it's probably going to take you about 60 to 100 years to pay back your student loans. I'm sorry to tell you, but listen, if you look at the breakdown of how many years it's taking you outside of the fact that you went to school for your associates, your bachelor's, maybe your master's, and even your doctorates, that's only a period of about 8 to 10 years of you being able to go to school. But then you look at the flip side, it's pretty much going to take you the rest of your life in order for you to pay that student loan debt back. So how long does it take before, if you don't decide to pay the loan back, how long does it take before it hits collection? 270 days. 270 days is 9 months for a student loan to hit collection. So I really want you to really begin to absorb this information. Don't play around with the time period or the understanding of how long it's going to take you to get these loans paid back. You want to make sure that you are doing the best option possible, which is that you are focused on getting the education, getting your degrees, your certifications, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. But make sure that you are taking it serious on whether or not you're going to be able to pay this money back. And if you have the option of getting a forgiveness, just understand that the forgiveness option is going to be where you can work for a nonprofit, you can work in a public service based location, or you could be a teacher, and there are opportunities for the loans to be forgiven. So don't just think of it as, oh, I just got to spend the rest of my life working. You don't have to do that, but you do have to figure out how you're going to pay the loan back or how you're going to get the forgiveness. So some of you can actually begin working for nonprofits. Maybe you want to decide now that you want to become a teacher or some type of public service job or business that you want to go into. So those are the options for forgiveness, which means that they would take away the entire debt, or usually 80 to 100% of whatever the education balance is. They would remove that from your credit. So I hope that you have taken this a little bit more serious than before, and understanding that before you decide to go to college, before you decide to go back to school and get your education, let's have a plan in place so that we will not be tricked into a forever debt called student loans, because it's going to matter whenever you apply for anything that is not a student loan. It's going to impact your credit so drastically, it will really make or break your credit. I promise. So I've seen this over and over again every time with our clients. So listen, it is a real serious problem that we take it so lightly that we don't pay our student loan debt back. So let's get on board with understanding how it works. Now that we have those student loan information exposed, let's go to work and make sure that we can get some forgiveness in place, that we can start paying on the loans while we're going to school, or we can eliminate having to pay back an income-driven repayment plan because we already got a plan to pay back the loans before we even finish school. All right, thank you guys for watching. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time on the KBCR TV show right here with Credit and Financial Tips with Michelle Green. Share this video, tell a friend, and make sure that we see you next Friday from 12:30 to 1 on the KBCR TV show. Thank you so much for watching.
At Kingdom Builders Credit Repair, you are more than a customer. You are a partner in your credit repair journey. We offer one-on-one guidance in a warm and friendly atmosphere. Kingdom Builders Credit Repair, empowering people to have financial dominion on purpose. Visit us online at www.kingdombuilderscreditrepair.com. 1320 Main Street, Suite 300, Columbia, South Carolina, 29201. Call 844-KBCR LLC. 844-KBCR LLC.